if somebody came to me with like their business idea, like I would be starting to think of like all the different connecting points.
Welcome, world, to another episode of Nobody's a Nobody podcast with me, Mike McVeigh. This is the podcast where I interview people I find absolutely fascinating, and I believe you will too if you'll give them a chance. This week's featured guest is the remarkable Sherree Murray, and Jarvix is back with his hot dog song of the week, Communicate by Nate Shipman. Our shout out business of the day is going to be Sherree's wellplannedmove.com. It has a lot of wonderful things to help you with moving, including a moving planner, color-coded moving labels, and even on sale right now, she has some humorous moving labels. So check out wellplannedmove.com. Our nonprofit is oneokc.org, which is Our Neighborhood Empowered here in Oklahoma City. And their job is to help give children and teenagers a chance to learn how to read and develop the skills necessary to succeed in the world. I'm a proud supporter of Make Oklahoma Weirder. I go to their Patreon account, and because of that, I'm able to support Jarvix and Electra and what they're doing to help the Oklahoma music scene. Please consider being a sponsor for them as well. It can be as little as just a couple dollars a month, and they will definitely take as much as you're willing to give. Sherree Murray is our guest this week, and she is the remarkable one. I have known her for a good chunk of my life, and she is one of those kinds of people that always just brightens the day wherever she goes. She has, as we will hear in the episode, we'll hear about her background, but she's now doing wellplannedmove.com along with other creative endeavors. I would strongly advise going ahead and purchasing some moving labels for some friends, for yourself in the future. She does incredible work, and we're going to talk to her about being a mom, about just how she got to where she is. So let's do what we always do and jump in with Sherree. One of the things that I find really fascinating about you is that you have two wonderful kids, and they are both distinctively unique and almost could be opposites, almost opposites in every way that I can see. But what is it like having two kids that you have to raise constantly?
Well, it's certainly a joy and a pleasure because I am so grateful that I even have kids in the first place. But it's certainly always a challenge because my kids are about 7.5 years difference. So, where my oldest, she is on a whole different level, in terms of like what she knows, what she understands, and what she's interested in. And then my youngest is just on a different level. He's very adventurous, wants to be out and about and do things where, my oldest doesn't. She likes to, she's more the introvert. She wants to stay home and just kind of stay in her room, isolate herself because she just likes being by herself, playing games or reading a book, where my youngest, he's wanting to play all the time with his friends. So balancing between the two is fun and it's a challenge, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
So how do you balance such different characteristics and personalities?
I don't know if that I do it well. I mean, I try my best, but it's also wonderful that I do have a husband that where I don't maybe connect on a certain level, he tends to connect better because maybe he has a better understanding or he's more interested in the same things that each of the children is involved in or appreciates. So it does help. And then in those moments where anytime that I might not understand something or I might be frustrated about it because whatever it may be, I have him to, have this conversation with him to say, okay, I may be not connecting on this level. Can you help me out and, be the peace offering? If we have like an issue, then he's able to kind of, bring a different perspective. And so I don't know if it's, again, like it's ever a perfect balance, but, as a parent, you do your best and you show them love each and every day. And I try really hard to always say, I love you every day. There might be a day or two that I'll forget by the end of the night, but that's my goal, right? Yeah. Nice face. But yes, that is my goal, is to always make sure that despite any differences that we may have with each other, that at the end of the day, they always know that we have their backs and that we love them no matter what.
Very cool. Now, I don't know if this is something that's limited to just you having the kids or if it's just who you are as a whole, but you always seem to be inviting people into your house and making communal type opportunities available, not just necessarily for those closest to you, but it seems like I always see you inviting people over to your house. Why?
Um, I think it just kind of goes back to just my childhood, I guess. Like I've always wanted to surround myself with people. I want to have friends and nurture those relationships. I want people to always know that they're loved and cared for. And it also brings me a lot of joy and satisfaction being able to have people come over and have conversations. Maybe it's play games together. Maybe it's just, having my kids have friends over. It to me, it's just fun. I'm an extrovert for the most part. I mean, I do appreciate being home by myself or being just together with my family, but there's something that, just having closeness with friends and knowing that our house is always open to them, that we're a safe place, that if anybody wanted to come and have conversations, that that we're there for them to support. It's something that's important to me.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things I think I've scared Brenda several times of mentioning like we need to have this like huge living room floor space so that way we can have people over all the time, and she's like, like once a month or once a year, once a decade. But that is
Well,
something that I find really cool about what you and Mark are always getting people over and connecting with them and everything. So is
I
that
think
something? Go ahead.
I was going to say it's a little bit hard, since COVID, back in March, we, had to hunker down and not really have people come over. And that has really affected me. Like, we have a small group of people from our church. Well, we love to have them come over or even other friends. And we've had to limit that, and I I struggle now because I really want people to feel like they're welcome. Please come over. Please, even tonight we've had, a nice storm and there was some other people without power. And I'm like, please, feel free to come here because again, I just want to provide a place where people feel like they're loved, they're appreciated, and they're cared for.
Yeah, you seem to always care about people to a really nth degree. It doesn't. It seems like everybody that knows you knows you're a carer. Or I don't know if that's like a category, but we'll make up one right now. And that Mark seems to do a really good job of complementing that with you, and just really cool. Personally, I
Thank
really
you.
wish we invited more people over, but then I realized I'd have to clean the house.
I understand. Yes, that's an issue even on our end.
And not only do you have a tendency to make community by inviting people over to your table and stuff, you also it seems, and I'm sure you and Mark are also involved in a lot of activities, but it seems like your children have a billion activities each, and because you're always posting on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, like, hey, this is this and this is that. Are you not worried about your children's privacy?
I know my daughter probably, well, she gets irritated sometimes because I will post some picture of her and she will say, like, you didn't have my permission to do so. And I'm like, I don't care. You're my child. Like, I'm not putting anything out that would be negative or bad, against her or anything. But yes, we are very active, as much as we can be. My son's involved in Cub Scouts. I've gotten my daughter involved in Girl Scouts. So we have that. Plus, my son has he's been in soccer. So we do a lot of activities. And then again on the weekends, we try to get out and go do something, or we're fixing up something in the house. So we do have kind of an active life, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I really enjoy being involved in these other organizations because I think at the end of the day, a lot of these activities that our kids are involved in is going to make them better people. one, it's socializing with other people, learning to communicate, but also some of it is activities. It's being, oh, what's the word? Not athletic, but active, just active, getting out there, running around, or, learning something, whether that's in Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, or whatever. They're going to walk away with something new and fresh that they get to appreciate. So, yes.
Did you have a set thing when you were a kid or teenager of what you wanted to be when you grew up? Or is it something that just constantly changed every time a new leaf fell?
Wow. Yes and no. So, when I was really young, my dad was a home builder, and I would go walk all these different houses, and I would start dreaming about what I wanted someday. I drew floor plans. I would, draw out my room and where my furniture was going to go. And as I got into high school, I started taking some drafting classes because I thought I might want to be an architect. That seemed like a good fit for me at the time. So I took 2 years of drafting classes, and then I met a guy. Didn't go to our school, but his father was an architect, and he had made the comment about, well, if a beam is in the wrong place, you're going to have to tell them that it's wrong or go move it. And when I was probably 15 years old, as a girl, and I felt sort of intimidated by that comment. And from that, it changed my path. I decided to not take a third year of drafting classes and, push myself further in that direction. I ended up taking some computer classes, and through conversations with my mom at the time, she thought in computer networking or computers, anything in the computer industry, technology, I should say, not computers, that you would have a job, and you would have a good job, possibly a good paying job if you went that direction. And so I kind of gravitated to that, and I thought maybe that's where I wanted to go. So by the time I went to college, that was what I was going to head towards. I was going to be like some computer networking person. And I ended up taking 3 classes, and I did not like them at all. I had to get through 2 semesters of programming, and I knew nothing. Like, I still had to go to the IT department and the friends that I had in the IT department to help me understand how to code. And I survived, and then went on to a third semester of uh, networking. And I realized, like, this is not who I am. At the core of me, I've always been a creative. So at that point, I had to pivot, had to figure out what made sense. And I wasn't interested in going to a whole nother university, especially like a big, large state school, because I really felt at home where we were at Southern Nazarene University, and it was just a smaller scale, university. And so the only other option at the time was to take, either go into education or go into marketing. And marketing was way more appealing to me, because it just allowed me to be a little bit more creative, and whether that was in writing or maybe in design. So I ended up doing that. Um, and from there, it just kind of took off down that path. But,
You graduated with a degree in marketing from SNU, and then all of a sudden,
what happened? So I met, I guess, the director of advertising with Hobby Lobby when I was a senior in college. He did mock interviews for the school, and so he'd come in and, talk to us and interview with us. And I had a great conversation with him, and I thought, well, I'll at least apply, maybe, once I was graduated or just before that or something. And so I ended up applying for a job, and at that point in time, he didn't really have anything in the advertising department, but he did have something in the print shop. So I was like, all right, get my foot in the door. So I was making copies and delivering, papers to different places. But at that same time, they had opened up a new furniture store, and so I was starting to slip out of the print shop into the advertising department and started helping them with their marketing and their or their advertising at the time. And that kind of led to some other opportunities where so
What was the name of the furniture store that Hobby Lobby had?
it was called Hemispheres. And
Okay.
it's been around probably, I would say 18, 19 years. But I know that they closed it down within the past year, maybe 2 years. Actually, probably just the last year.
Okay.
It started as a really unique store where super expensive, beautiful furniture from all over the world. And so I had some unique opportunities to help assist with some commercials that they did, and then some of the product photography, and then just the print ads that they would send out to the stores. So I kind of participated in a lot of that. And also, while I was there, the graphic design team was in the department as well. And so I started to learn how to do some graphic design work. And it was all sort of just all by, what do you call that? Learning on my own. Nobody was
Right.
really technically teaching me how to do any of this stuff. I did take one course on, like a little workshop on, what was it? Quark. I think it was Quark back in the day. So I learned how to do like their newsletter. I became a newsletter editor at the time, but I was really grateful because having some graphic design experience, with Photoshop and with Illustrator and Quark at the time, that really kind of set me up for some opportunities down the road. So that was really special and unique for me. But I was there for about 3 years. And then my husband at the time was a youth pastor. He was a youth pastor. He is not a youth pastor anymore. We had some changes several years ago, but we ended up living in Tulsa. So I had to leave that job, and I worked for a women's barbershop music organization. Well, it's called Sweet Adelines International. This is a legit thing. There are, well, at the time, probably 30,000 people all over the world that are involved with this organization. They have in different groups, different cities and countries, they would have, maybe 50, 60 women that come together for, a group, a barbershop group, and they would go to different performances. So they might do things on a local level, but then there was an international competition. And so we would meet, like we met in Las Vegas one year, they were going to meet in Hawaii, they met in Detroit. So anyway, they would come together and do these big, huge productions on a big stage. And so you'd sit there and, listen to them and sing Over the Rainbow like 30 times, because everybody, it's a really good song for barbershop music, apparently.
Right. Right.
So from there, we were there for about 3 years, like in Tulsa, and then we had to make a change. Some things kind of crashed and burned, and so we moved back to Oklahoma City, and kind of had to rebuild our life here. And at the time, too, my husband was still was a youth pastor, and he started a church started in with a church in Norman, and so we were commuting for a little while. We lived with his grandfather because we didn't have enough, I didn't have a job, and I also had a newborn at the time, and we had to figure out, where we were going to live and how much money, did we have to buy a house. And things didn't pan out, but that's okay. God had a
Right.
plan in all of this. But about 4 months after, moving down here, he lost his position at that church, and I didn't have a job, he didn't have a job, and we just had to come together and figure out what our life was going to be like after that.
Like when you were a kid and stuff, were you a craftsy person or craft type
Crafty
person?
person.
Yeah, crafty person. There you go, crafty for crafts.
Uh, yes, I drew a lot. I don't I don't remember that I got real artsy with crafts. I don't remember my mom sitting down to do much of that with me. But from an artistic mindset, like rearranging my bedroom probably a gazillion times, because I would always see it differently. Um, if I went over to a friend's house, I might help them, rearrange things and stuff. But I think design and, looking at magazines also back in the day, like that was just a joy for me. I don't know exactly where that came from, but I've always been more of a visual, designer. I don't know
Right.
how else to describe that, but
This would have been approximately, I'm guessing, 13 years ago when, so you and your husband are jobless, you have a baby, newborn, and what are you going to do? What did you do?
so I can't recall exactly the timing of this, but I ended up applying to a job at Southern Nazarene University. It was a new position and a new center. It's called the Zig Ziglar Center for Ethical Leadership at the time. It's since no longer really there, as far as I know. Um, but anyway, so I came there and I literally worked what I always say is for pennies. I didn't get paid all that much, but I was like an assistant coordinator. What was it? Assistant. Oh gosh, I can't even, oh, executive assistant. I think that's what it was. But I worked for an incredible boss. Because I should say, my husband and I had gone through so much um, loss or tragedy or, difficulty in 2007 when we kind of lost some job situations. He really was what I think ultimately I needed in my life because he became my cheerleader. He became a good support person. So if I had any problems, like at home, like if I needed to attend to my daughter or whatever, like he was gracious. He was like, go do it. And then he would give me the tools and the resources to do, if I wanted to do more web development or graphic design development or whatever, like he's like, go for it. He let me do those things that I've always wanted to do. And so I am forever grateful to him. Tony Griffin is his name. Just a wonderful guy. But so I was there, and Mark ended up starting back for a second degree, and he was doing it at night, one night a week, and then he ended up getting a job at night at UPS. So he would be at UPS from like 10:30 at night till about 4:30. He'd get home, sleep for a couple hours, and then I got up and had to go to work, and we still had a newborn that he'd have to wake up and take care of until I got home. And so it was really kind of a struggle for about 6, 7 months until he got a job on campus in the IT department. And so we laugh a little bit because it's like we were both making pennies and we're just living with his granddad at the time. And we're grateful for that because it was rent free. We got to also provide him with a family in his own house because he had lost his wife just before our daughter was born. And so looking back on it now, like I'm so grateful, but I know in that first year, it was difficult emotionally, just being in that place, in that situation with loss, not having, the finances and the home that, I dreamed about having. So, but it made us who we are today. We're better for it.
Now, Avery's probably about 2 or 3
2 or
ish.
3.
All
Yeah.
right, so continue on.
So from there, while I was at SNU, my boss was going to get another PhD. I think, yeah, a PhD. He had already had like a div, CPA, MDiv, like he had all these, credentials, and he was about to just go get a PhD. And then his wife was thinking about doing nursing at the time, and they already had 3 kids. And I thought, you know what? If they can do it, I can do it. I only have one small little baby at this point. I can go back and get a master's while I'm here. I had tuition remission, so it was like a no-brainer for me to at least go for it. So I stayed long enough for me to get my degree or my master's in business administration. And Mark had finished up his degree, computer network management. And towards the end of that, I ended up finding out about a job with K-Love and Air One Radio, and I applied to it. And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think I would actually get called on it, but I did. And I went through probably a month and a half of different interviews. They're based out of California, so like I was just going to be like a local promotions manager here. And then we had like the senior promotions manager who was going to be my boss, and she interviewed me. And then it led to a couple interviews with the corporate. And so about a month and a half into it, I think I finally got the call to, that I got the job. And I was so excited because it was like almost, I've always sort of wanted to have more opportunity to be out on a more of a public setting where, if you get on stage to do a presentation or to talk to people or whatever, like that it had that opportunity. But not even that. It was just like it was also this opportunity to love on people, because if you don't know who K-Love or Air One Radio is, it is a Christian radio stations, or two different radio stations. And so like you would go to Christian concerts and you would get to go on stage and get everybody excited. So are you excited to be at this concert? We have so and so on stage, and come by, talk to us, sign up to win a guitar or something. And it was just
Right.
so much fun because you got to just get excited and be spontaneous and get to meet people and love on them. And that was just wonderful. I was there for a
Yeah.
year
Oh, wow.
getting to do that. But then I got a call from a person who works at Mardell Christian Education, and they needed a marketing manager at the time. So I was like, okay, well, if I do that, I could see my career going, a slightly different direction. I would be an 8 to 5 kind of job. So I don't have to work all the nights and the weekends like I had to do with in the radio business, because, concerts, you go to them at night, on the weekends. So I looked at it as a really unique opportunity to sort of change my career, get back into sort of this business profession. And so I did do that, and worked there for another 3.5 years, 3 years, something like that. And that was fun. I did marketing again there, doing content writing to advertising, working with graphic designers and doing all kinds of stuff. Did some voiceovers at one point, and I thought that was really fun. Worked with videos, and anyway, it was fun. But I ended up leaving after about 3 years.
So that's really cool. I had no idea. So maybe I talked to you on the phone and I didn't realize it when all those times I was trying to win contests. Who knows?
Oh, no, you probably didn't talk to me. Everything really was done at the corporate level, whether it was like in California or I think it was Indiana. They had 2 different locations. And so like the morning crew would be in Indiana, so the central time schedule. And then everybody else would be out in Rockland, California.
Okay, so you worked for K-Love for about 3 years. This is probably around
Actually, a
2000.
year for that
So,
one.
oh, year. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So is this around 2010 now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's going on in 2010? Just 10 years ago. Woo!
So that was when Mardell, the director, came and approached me. And so I had to just decide, what did I want to do? There was a lot of flexibility related to the K11 Air One promotions manager position. It was just a lot of fun. Like you could just, it was not too structured. It was not like super, button up and professional. It was just casual. I had a great team. It was like a co-promotion manager. So there was 2 of us who we covered basically the state of Oklahoma, and we just loved each other. I mean, it was so much fun. But I think at the end of the day, the things that felt important was, now I have a young daughter. I need to be home more for her. And it was also not kind of a stepping point for me, like to be able to step up into a new role, have a little bit more I say authority, that's not what I mean by it, like in a negative connotation. I'm just saying like an opportunity to have more influence, into in a role. And so I ended up going that direction and enjoyed it for a while. But I did feel like some things were changing along the way, and it was no longer really fitting with me personally. And so I had to kind of look at other opportunities to see what was out there. So I ended up leaving after about 3 years. After the 3 year point, I some things, like I said, were changing, and I felt led to look at some other options. And so there were two jobs that I applied to. I interviewed for both, and I ended up getting um, offered these two jobs. One was for a for profit organization, and then another one was a nonprofit organization. And so, having been in both worlds before and having just worked in a for profit setting, I felt like at that time I that I should go for the nonprofit because I felt like I would be doing good in the world. And so I went to this nonprofit a little bit blind, in terms of, just what the when I say corporate, what it's like inside. I didn't really know what that really looked like until I got there. And I won't mention the organization because I think the organization itself is phenomenal. And I think what they do as a whole is wonderful, but it came down for me and other people. It was kind of like I started to see some turnover there, and I didn't understand why or what was going on until a couple months into it. But I stayed for like 9 months, and I had to make a change. It was a point in my life where I knew I needed to do something that would fulfill my soul, like my spirit and my heart. I felt like I started just trying to climb a ladder almost, just try to get to the next position because maybe that would be more satisfying. Maybe I would have a little bit more influence in the role. Maybe I would have more income. And so I kept trying, and nothing seemed to be really working at the time. And I came in on a Friday morning, and we were a department of three. One of the girls came to me and said that, she had gotten a new job and she was resigning, that day, or she was giving her resignation, I should say. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I've been trying to find something different, for a while. So that weekend, I just had to do a lot of soul searching and try to figure out, like, okay, what do I want to do? Like, do I continue down this path of marketing and writing and communications, PR, whatever? Or do I go back to what I've always wanted to do since I was a kid, which was to be a designer or to be creative? And so having conversations with Mark, we'd made a decision to just jump. We'll figure it out. I don't know what it's going to look like, how we're going to make it, but jump and we'll figure it out. So that Monday morning I came in and I, gave my resignation, and it was freeing to some degree because I knew that I was going to be changing my lifestyle, being able to be able to work from home and try to figure out like how to do this was kind of exciting, but also nerve wracking. I will say so this was 2015 when this happened, but in 2013, I wanted to try like a side job, which was going to be like organizing. If I could be a professional organizer, at least that would allow me to be creative and do that as a side job. And then if something happened later down the road, maybe I'll go down that path. But at 2013 is when I ended up getting pregnant with my second child. And so I decided not to pursue that path. So fast forward 2015, it was that moment of, okay, well, I can be an organizer. I can decorate people's homes. maybe I could create some labels, like, organizing labels and put it on Etsy, because there was so many different, people doing that already. And I thought maybe that's the way that I could do passive income. Well, as time went on, I had to create like the business, what's the name of the business, and I need a logo, and so on and so forth. And so, you know, I ended up trying to, my logo, I was trying to wait on that from a friend who was helping to design that. And that gave me time to figure out like what kind of organizing labels can I do? Let me be creative, let me design something. And I would research it, and nothing was really just the aha moment. There was nothing that I felt like I was creating was much different from what was already existing. So I kind of stepped back for a second. And then I was starting to think about, okay, now I have a friend who is a home stager. Well, what about home staging? I could get into that. Let me see what that's like. So I started researching and looking at being certified as a home stager. So that was probably December of 2015. And as I was thinking about that and trying to pursue that, I was also thinking about the fact that if I'm a home stager, I may work with realtors, and realtors work with buyers and sellers who move. So then I got this idea that I wanted to look into moving labels. Like, what if I could create something, because at the time there was all this color coding, like stickers. People would do color coded tape, or just little stickers that they might put on a box. And so I was like, well, what is there to help organize people? And so I ended up creating this whole kit, color coded moving label kit, that I ended up calling Well Planned Move. It took me several months to, put that together, but then I ended up getting it done, and then I put that out onto the marketplace. But so with moving labels, let's see, I really don't remember the whole time frame, but it took me probably, 5 or 6 months maybe to put that to piece together. And with that, I had to, one, you design it. Two, I had to find a printer and that could do it, and how affordable could it be. Not only that, I needed to, because if I was going to put this on the market, I had to think about trademarking the Well Planned Move. Because if I put something on the marketplace like Amazon, or just the internet, I didn't want anybody to take that from me. So one, I had to design the labels. Two, I had to have a logo, and then I had to get it trademarked. And so I was able to do all those things. It was a really unique learning experience to be able to do that. Thankfully, at the time, I had a brother-in-law whose sister and her husband's family owned a print shop in Indiana. And so that connection was great, because they helped me figure out what kind of label stock and how to get it printed, and then we get it shipped, and try that process. It was really unique for me to be able to learn that. And then once I got that piece done, I started thinking about, well, what about a moving planner? Like, what are the tools to help people through that process? Because you'll go searching on the internet for moving checklist, and you will find like 5 billion different versions of checklists. Some of them are very short and sweet, and then some are a little bit more in depth, but it didn't seem like they were all connected very well. And so I started thinking about, okay, let's create like a full complete checklist that has everything that you might want to think about. And then beyond that, it's like, if you're going to use a moving company, what's that information that we need that valuable information you need to know about? If you're going to call them, well, what are the different types of estimates that they have? Or, what hazardous materials that they won't take with them on their trucks? Or, what about the insurance? Just various things related to, using a moving company. Maybe you're going to do a storage unit, rent a truck, or a portable container.
Right.
Um, and I had several other things in there. And so I just put together this planner, and I ended up printing it. And I put I created a shop on Shopify at the time and created my own little website called wellplannedmove.com and put that out there. Well, I learned that the planner, like no one really wanted the physical copy. They just like digital copies. So I later then changed that into a digital version. And then I started selling quite a few of those. I put that on Etsy, and I started to see a lot more activity there with the planner. The labels, they sold here and there. I did put those on Amazon, and every time I'd get a little email that said that one sold, I was like, yay, that little tiny victory. And at the end of the day, did I make a lot of money from it? Not really. But in the big grand scheme of things, because there's a lot of other costs associated with selling online and Amazon. And so, but it didn't matter because I was like, this is my idea that somebody finds valuable or
Right.
going to eventually help them. And so that really was the motivating factor for me. So anyway, I did that for a while, or I got that started. So I would say from about 2016 is probably when that all got developed. And then 2017, I was, trying to sell the labels. I was helping with home staging consultations. And I also was still doing some design work. And I thought to myself, I was selling the labels. I was doing home staging consultations. And what was the other thing? And designing. I was still doing design work. And at that point, I was like, I'm not really, I will say this, I was not really getting a lot of income at the time. I wasn't as busy as I'd like. And so I thought to myself, why don't I just incorporate real estate into this whole mix? So then I could be the home stager. I could give them the moving labels. I could help them pick out a house and, like basically not pick the house for them, but be able to go into a home and say, yeah, like you could totally put your furniture here, here, and here, put the wall art over here, and, help them visualize and find placements for their belongings. And so I was like, well, let's just bring real estate into the mix and then I can just do everything basically. But what I found was as I was doing that, one, in your first year, it's kind of hard, to get a lot of business. But not only that, I found that I was just being pulled in different directions, whether I was trying to do the labels, trying to sell that, or it was like I had some design work going on. I couldn't really home stage for a lot of people. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I was also home staging with a builder, like doing moving their furniture to one place to the next and staging their homes. Um, and so I realized when I was doing real estate, I was constantly being sort of pulled in different directions. And I wasn't enjoying the real estate side as much as I was enjoying the designing side. It was controlling my schedule so much that I was kind of losing the motivation and losing that, fuel, if you will, and that excitement, that joy. And so I decided to pull back about year ago, year and a half ago, and just concentrate more on the design part of it. But with the design stuff, I did try other things. Like I always thought it'd be fun to just take people shopping. Let's talk about your own home. Let's figure out, let me see pictures or let me come to your house and we'll go together because then it's that relationship, right? That thing that I talked about earlier, like being with somebody. Seeing their smiles, them get excited about something that we're pulling together. And I'm very big on I'm pretty frugal. Like I'm all about saving a dollar if we can. So let's just go to Home Goods or TJ Maxx or Tuesday Morning and let's find some stuff that is affordable and we'll make something into something or make their home into something that's fresh and new and beautiful. And so I tried that. I didn't end up pushing it very hard. So it didn't really go as far as I, want to. But I guess the thing with me though, if you haven't noticed, is that I think that I'm capable of doing a lot of things. And then because of that, I don't get to come back and just focus on that one thing. that make sense? So a
Yeah,
lot
it
of times
does.
people say, focus on this one area and push towards that. But I have had a hard time because I like all of it
Right.
and I'm capable. I'm capable of doing all of this. So I don't want to let go or I'm afraid that I'll miss out. So I have had to figure out, where do I put all my attention and focus? But more recently I've figured out some things that I need to, focus on. Wellplannedmove.com is for specifically the moving labels and the moving planner. But my the umbrella business is Remarkable Spaces. And right now I have stepped away from like the blog for the moment because I just had been working with a client of mine and we've done like the whole house, but it's not ready for photography. And so I haven't been able to really kind of showcase some things that we've done there. So I just kind of let that sit and rest for a little bit because my priority has been get the moving labels, get the moving planner done, promote that, and then I'll come back around to updating the website. However, I still design. I will still work with people. I have one realtor that uses me pretty frequently to help her clients stage their homes for sale. And I love that. I love being able to go into somebody's home and work with what they already have, help them figure out, where their placement, where do they need to, like, if anything needs to be taken out, or what to fill in the gaps. I'll take about a 2 hour time frame and show up and we'll go through the house, we'll hang wall art up, we'll do all these things and it's just fun. I really enjoy that. And I've been thinking about whether I want to go ahead and offer that more and just open that up to not just people who are buying and selling, like open it up to anybody who just needs help with their own house. I really resonate with the people who just have a nice average house, who have, some nice things in their house, but they just don't know what to do with it or how, you know, we just need to go look online or go to a local store here and let me help pull things together quickly for you so then you can have a home that you can enjoy. Like I really enjoy that stuff. But I think right now it's for me, it's like this whole balancing act of like, where do I put my time and attention and focus? Because it's hard because I think everything is important. I love to help people. So I want to be able to do that. But I also know that right now I've spent almost a year to get my labels and this planner all done. Like I've got to spend some time to get that out into the marketplace so that people can eventually use it and hopefully make their life a little easier. I love that there's Pinterest in the world because I don't necessarily want to do what somebody else has done exactly, but whatever they've done and I've liked it, I may want to pull something from that because maybe it's that mantle. I love that style, but now, I want to put tile around it instead of brick and
Right.
be able to just take different elements from different places and bring it together and make it really beautiful.
And so this is probably right now the best way to support you is to go to Well Planned Move and let anybody that we know that's moving or thinking about uh, reorganizing for whatever, but they have to put boxes. This is probably the best way to support you right now.
That and it's also on Amazon and Etsy as well. So with
Okay.
different avenues that you can find it. I'm grateful at the end of the day. Like I get to do what I love. It may not mean that I'm a millionaire by any means. I, get to live a life where I'm still able to be available for my kids, available for my husband, and available for my friends at any point in time. And I still get joy and satisfaction out of helping people. And
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, like that's everything for me. So
You are an inspiration. You're an inspiration to people. I don't think anybody can ever go like, oh man, Sherree, goodness, have to deal with her again. I mean, it's always like, oh wow, Sheree's here. This is going to be better. Things are going to go better because she's here. And I really do believe that that is a sentiment of people that I know that know you. Maybe all the people I don't know that know you think differently, but um,
Mike, you're gonna make me cry here.
well,
I, you know, I often feel like I'm neglecting people, and I'm so wrapped up in my own little world sometimes that I don't see this. And so
Well,
I'm like, well, thank you. I'm grateful for that.
Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog.
Hey listeners, it's Jarvix again with my hot dog song of the week. This episode I'm bringing you a song by Shawnee, Oklahoma singer-songwriter Nate Shipman. He put out his debut album called Giver a few months ago, and if you like stripped acoustic numbers, you'll want to check out the sweet guitar mood he's got going on. While the tracks sound very similar to one another sonically, the DNA of their songwriting reflects a breadth of musical know-how that keeps the track list interesting. That's because, while this is his first album as a solo artist, it's far from his first brush with music making. I became aware of Nate through a former band of his called Missing Sunrise back when I was a regular at the now-defunct OKC bar and venue, The Root. I could sense his enthusiasm for being a part of the music world, and, well, have you ever been in a group project and felt like you were carrying the whole thing by yourself? That's kind of the vibe I got back then. It's honestly nice to hear his music in 2020, an otherwise hellacious year that nonetheless feels like it's afforded him the breath of fresh air to scale back and recenter his artistry as a solo artist. You can hear where parts of the songs on Giver could be fleshed out with a full band, but that's not what this project is about. The intimacy reflects Nate Shipman's efforts to get to the root of his beliefs, which, by the way, often come through in language that echoes biblical teachings. He is an Oklahoma Baptist University kid, after all. While I'm not personally religious, I do find some thoughtful gems in this album. I don't feel preached to the way I sometimes do with music that is more pigeonholed as quote-unquote Christian. The song I'm sharing is called Communicate, and it's a fine example of what I'm talking about in terms of songwriting. It's also a fine example of what Nobody's a Nobody is about. In short, it's a song about the importance of listening to different perspectives. I think it's one of the highlights of the new album, which, again, is called Giver, and it's a complete coincidence that Mike happened to read The Giving Tree earlier this week. You can stream this album pretty much anywhere, though we do love to plug Bandcamp whenever possible. So if you like what you hear, consider purchasing Nate's music at nateshipman.bandcamp.com. Here is Communicate by Nate Shipman.
Way too hard to get far while being defensive. And I think you would be amazed if you threw your fences away. Can we listen as much as we speak? Can we learn to communicate? And why not give time to speaking with wise words? I'd want to be known by speaking blessing rather than a curse. And I think I would be amazed if I threw my harsh words away. Can we listen as much as we speak? Can we learn to communicate? much as we speak? Can we listen as much as we speak? Can we learn to communicate?
All right, I feel like I need to say something, especially with Jarvix's introduction to Mr. Shipman. We do not coordinate at all with what music he's planning on doing and who the guest is. But as you could hear, Nate Shipman's music resonates strongly with Sherree Murray, our guest, the remarkable. And thank you both to Sherree and Nate for doing such awesome work. Thank you, Jarvix, for just being you. Please support wellplannedmove.com, oneokc.org. Nobody's a nobody, and that means you. Until next time.